Every Tuesday at this time, we touch base with one of the coolest guys, Dr. John Braccio from Regional Psychological Services, on any number of maybe disorders. Sometimes it's something that we all get into. This is I've known a couple of people who have what we call panic attacks, agoraphobia, and I wonder, agora, what is that? Well, if you look it up. In ancient Greece, the agora was the public space, the gathering place, right? It's kind of the town square. So it would be maybe phobia, the fear of being in public. But now I think agoraphobia kind of covers a lot of different things. And we're going to find out because he's the expert, not me. Dr. John Braccio. And what's up, Doc? Hey, Doc, how you doing?
Very, very good, Mike. Always good chatting with you. And, agoraphobia is an anxiety disorder where it causes great discomfort with someone. Whenever they're in certain situations that cause them extreme anxiety. Generally ranges from such things as, fear of being with people, being in wide open spaces, driving in a car, standing in line, using public transportation, being in an elevator, being on a plane, or many other situations where the person becomes just uncomfortable being around people or in certain anxiety-producing situations. When you add panic attacks, which cause symptoms that a person can actually feel they are dying with a heart attack, well, it's evident this is a very difficult situation to live with. A further complication is that some persons who have panic attacks often will go to the emergency room in the hospital because they actually believe they are dying. Now, typical symptoms of panic attacks are heart racing or palpitations, trembling, difficulty breathing, sweating, chest pain, shortness of breath, and sometimes really the fear of dying, Mike. That's how severe the symptoms can be. A person with agoraphobia also have many of the same symptoms as persons with social anxiety. But agoraphobia is a broader problem area because it can relate to almost any situation with or without persons. The unfortunate result of agoraphobia with panic attacks is that persons become afraid of being around other persons and can lose contact and become isolated. They also fear losing control in public or being around other persons. They may have feelings they're weird or strange or don't want to be around other persons. When they do, the symptoms of panic attacks come back. They'll often avoid places where they have had difficult problems in the past, kind of bad learning. It could be a large or small store, a mall, an elevator, certain seating in a car or office, or possible situation, anything you can imagine. I personally have been amazed how many things can cause agoraphobia with panic attacks. This only leads to their world becoming really more and more narrow. And comorbid conditions that exist with agoraphobia with panic attacks include depression, social anxiety, OCD, along with many physical symptoms that can really come from having this intense emotional pressure from fears and panic attacks. In order for one to really have technically the diagnosis, characteristics need to have been in place for 6 months. Women tend to be diagnosed twice as often as men. Successful treatment for this condition, which as you can see is very difficult, usually includes some combination of medication, self-help, and mental health counseling that includes some aspects of cognitive behavioral therapy treatment and exposure therapy. And the number of persons with agoraphobia and panic attacks is probably somewhere around 2 million in the United States. Now, this may not seem too high in a country of over 300 million. It does if you're one of the persons with this condition, because you know how debilitating and difficult this can be from both a physical and emotional perspective. So, Mike, if you have this, agoraphobia with panic attacks, it's a hard thing to overcome. And your world can get smaller and smaller. You really can be afraid to be in certain places. You could be on the highway. It can be, going up ladders. It can be almost anything you can imagine can really cause a person to really lose their footing in life, if you will. And then when you get these extreme panic attacks, it can be really quite a difficult thing for people to have. And people don't like to talk about it if they have it.
Right.
But their lives can become very, very narrow, and it's episodic, and it's kind of odd because you might be able to go into a Walmart, but you can't go into a Meijer. You've had a bad learning. Well, they're phobias. That's
Weird.
why they're not reasonable. You have a fear far beyond the reality of the situation you're in. So these are tough things to deal with. There are people that won't even, if they have to drive, they can't sit in a car, or they have to be in a room near the door where they can see everything. So it's just a strange condition, because it doesn't make any sense. These don't really make any sense. But if you have this, it can be really debilitating. And the person will even tell you, but they could say to me, Dr. Braccio, this is really unreasonable. I know it, but I can't control it. I mean, when you've got that kind of a thing, it can be pretty overwhelming, Mike.
And you mentioned it has to go on for like 6 months to be actually chronic, I guess, or actually diagnosed. Because I was wondering, because I think a lot of people will have one episode of, being scared, being frightened, like you walk into a brand new job or something like that.
Sure, that's right.
That's normal. But this is an ongoing thing, and it has to be. It ends up being unreasonable.
Phobia, any type of phobia, it's an unreasonable fear. I mean, if someone's, out shooting you with a gun, you're not paranoid, okay? If you think people are out to get you and they're not, I mean, then that becomes, paranoia. So, it's an unreasonable kind of a fear. Because if you really look at this, a person who's, afraid to be outside, okay, in the backyard, or it doesn't make sense. They may feel comfortable in the front yard, but not the backyard. It's an odd thing, because it doesn't really, make a lot of sense. But so each person has their own ride. There are people that can drive in Lansing, but they can't drive beyond Lansing. And you can say, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. To which I would say, that's right, it doesn't. But if you have that condition and that happens to you, it can make your life very narrow. And then when you try to go beyond, or you try to do something that causes the panic attacks and the worries, it can be really overwhelming. And really, people do much more than you might think, go to the hospital thinking they're having a heart attack, and they're really having a panic attack. Because panic attacks are pretty overwhelming, because you get all the same symptoms as if you're dying. So it can be so you really have to really work at trying to overcome it. And it's not an easy thing to do, but you have to do self-care. You have to be rethinking. You need to use cognitive restructuring. You need to be getting into telling yourself how unreasonable, how this doesn't work. And then exposure therapy is where you actually confront the problem, where you actually will begin. A simple one to at least look at it was like a plane. People that are afraid of being on a plane, okay? A simple one, but one that we can deal with. So what do? You have to start getting used to going near the airport, getting used to being in the environment.
I got to tell you this story. You'll love this. This is when my oldest son, now 33 years old, when he was a little kid, he loved snakes. I hate snakes. I'm not alone. I knew it. But you know what I did? And I was told about this exposure therapy stuff. I said, okay, all right. And I happened to have a friend who had a pet store. And he let me take a snake home to babysit for the weekend.
Oh.
My son was over the moon. He thought it was the best thing. And so we spent some time in the pet store first, letting me hold the snake, sitting in a chair, people around me. Oh, my gosh, it was the craziest thing. And I still don't like them, but at least I was able to be around my son and not be a panicked little, sniveling little guy going, yeah, you hold him, a 5-year-old boy, but Dad can't. At least I could hold the snake and not panic around him. But that was my exposure to it.
It's a perfect example of where you're really doing exposure therapy. Yeah, you're confronting the problem. And you still might not like the snake. That doesn't mean you don't want to fly in a plane or get in an elevator. It doesn't mean you're going to like to do these things, but you have to confront it if you're going to take control. Otherwise, these things, and unfortunately, phobias of any type tend to grow if we don't watch out, and they can expand and take more and more control. They're like invisible masters. There's a book actually called that, Invisible Masters, where they can take control of you. So
Dr. John Braccio, we're up on time again, Doc. But I appreciate agoraphobia or agoraphobia. When you say agoraphobia, it makes me sound like I'm scared of the farm. Doc, have a marvelous day. We appreciate it. Regional Psychological Services and Dr. John Braccio. We'll talk next week.
See you. Bye-bye.
See ya. 1320 WILS.